Greetings shippers, welcome back, and it's time to talk about Captain Marvel and some shipping. At the time of this recording, Captain Marvel has been very recently released, so I will issue a brief spoiler warning. We're going to try not to touch on too much, but when discussing the ships, it will probably come up. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please do follow on social media to stay up to date, know when we're streaming, and just come on over and chit chat about fandom. It's a good time, I swear. Now, when discussing Captain Marvel, because there has been so much of a kerfuffle surrounding its release, press tour, reviews, want-to-sees, there's been a lot that's gone on. So it must be stated before we even begin that this might be one that people are avoiding because of either preconceived notions or also just because they don't want to deal with any potential stress. However, like all films, Captain Marvel must be seen for oneself to determine how you feel about it. And it must also be noted that it's completely fine to love it, hate it, or be ambivalent about it. There are certain people out there who are attempting to use whether one enjoys Captain Marvel or not as a type of litmus test, but really it's just like any other film at the end of the day. It has a goal in mind, it presents itself, and people will either enjoy it or not enjoy it. Different strokes for different folks, but definitely go and give it a look-see for oneself so that you can form a complete opinion. Like most films in the MCU, this one came out with some shippability, and one of the ships was definitely, most likely, one can't be completely definitive with these things, unintentional, because there were some shifts in certain characters, gender bends, and alterations of backstories that seemed to be attempting to eliminate a certain romance but ended up creating a new one instead. Now, this is still a very young fandom in MCU terms. Carol Danvers does have her ships, but she has never been the most shipped character out there. Since the film, there have been a couple of ships rising to prominence, and they seem to be on the exact opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of who they appeal to. That being the person who enjoys friends to lovers, very fluffy domestic solid fare, and the person who enjoys a bit of a darker fare, and enjoys dabbling in the realms that are these days labeled as problematic. In fact, for people playing in that arena, some of them have actually even been putting disclaimers on their fics from the start, just to potentially avoid any backlash, though it doesn't seem as if any gets cropped up, but there is the potential for it. So what seem to be the dominant ships? On the one side, we have Femslash, with the pairing of Carol Danvers and Maria Rambeau. These two are best friends who have been torn apart because of the circumstances that occurred that led to Carol Danvers becoming Captain Marvel. And Carol doesn't have her memory and she needs to relearn her life all over again. And Maria is more than happy to pick up exactly where they left off. Also, Maria has a daughter named Monica, and Carol had a big hand in raising her when she was still around. So as you can see, all of the blocks are there and they have set themselves up. Most of the fics you're dealing with there are very nurturing, familial, dealing with Carol finding happiness and just a good source of stability and positivity in her life. Indeed, some feel that this is the true love present in this film. On the other hand, we have the pairing of Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, and Yon-Rogg. So it must be noted that the fact that Jude Law was indeed playing Yon-Rogg was about as surprising as the fact that Benedict Cumberbatch was playing Khan, so not even slightly.
A smoke screen to conceal my true identity. My name is Khan.
We know. We've been new. In all fairness, for both these films, there were people who were surprised, but on the whole, it tended to be something that got out before the production intended it to. Also, the name was on IMDb. IMDb is just horrible for spoilers if you're trying to avoid stuff. They have names, they have set photos. If you don't want any spoilers at all, stay away. Jude Law's Yon-Rogg ends up playing an intriguing dual role of a combination of Yon-Rogg and the original Captain Marvel, even though there is a Captain Marvel in this film. However, because of how Carol's origin story has been restructured, it ends up being Yon-Rogg who spends 6 years training and mentoring her. And because of that, the relationship very much takes on that previous Marvel one, however with a darker twist, because he is indeed Yon-Rogg. And as the film eliminates pretty much all overt romance from itself, one is left to fill in the blanks. And some have been filling in those blanks with Yon-Rogg, especially because originally in the comics, Captain Marvel and Captain Marvel did have a relationship. So for some, it evolves quite naturally, and it adds an extra layer to this betrayal. It's one of those dark, nuanced fare that the people who are shipping it fully acknowledge that it goes to some very dark places, but that's what they enjoy about it, working through that type of darkness. So what can one expect from these two pairings? Well, on the whole, it depends how much shipping takes off within this fandom. At the time of this recording, it is slow going still, but it is early days. Some fandoms explode transformatively right away, and some take a while. And it does remain to be seen because of all the controversy surrounding the film, and also because of Marvel burnout, which is definitely a thing. There are some people who are simply puttering out of enthusiasm for this universe. It's simply been too long and too much. And there are some who have become disillusioned somewhere back along the way at various films. People have dropped off at various points. For some people, this will be a jumping on point though. It must be noted, everybody's at a different point in their fandom journey. So there is the potential that one of these ships will rise to the top. And there are other ships out there too that don't even involve the title characters. You never know which ship is gonna rise to the top. Look at Clint and Coulson. But when it comes to what appear to be the leading two, there is potential for some friction. When you have two ships and one is viewed as more healthy than another one, which can have abusive undertones or is working through themes of abuse or needs to twist itself into something else to become a more positive relationship, then you can have those who will place a value judgment upon the darker of the shippers. This happens in many fandoms all the time. It can be intensified also when one pairing is queer and one pairing is het. As at this point, if one is drawn to a darker het ship, some feel that as a representation of some form of internalized homophobia. Why enjoy that ship over this perfectly lovely healthy ship over here? It must be noted that everybody is drawn to different things and it's not consistent across mediums. One can be drawn to the fluffy light femme/slash ship here, but be drawn to something completely darker somewhere else. It very much depends on what is going on in the rest of the text. Everybody has their own things that appeal to them and draw them in. And it must be noted with most shippers that shipping is not a conscious decision or choice that they make. It's simply something that happens, and sometimes you can feel it happening, just that pull towards the darkness, whether you want it or not.
No, no, no!
Yes, yes, yes!
No, no, no!
Yes, yes, yes!
Though some do make a choice to consciously explore other ships, and others are multi-shippers, who can ship multiple pairings at the same time within a fandom. But that's part of what makes fandom and shipping so fun. It can be so varied from fandom to fandom. So far, it must be reiterated that there hasn't been any drama as of yet. It is early days, and people who are enjoying it tend to be having a good time, and the drama is centralized in other arenas, specifically surrounding reviews and how the film is being perceived, and the press tour, and the lead actress. There's just been a lot going on. As for why this has had such an impact, in the vaguest of terms, cliff notes and focusing on press tours and extra interview material. It must be noted that the press tour, especially in the MCU, does have a huge impact in how people approach the film, as historically the press tour has been used as an extension of the MCU.
Enjoy this Team Iron wannabe, man, but the right team is the only team, Cap.
No negativity from me.
This isn't even the first time it's caused significant backlash. Remember what happened to Jeremy Renner after his Black Widow comments.
She's a slut. I was gonna say something along that line. It's a complete whore. What a trick, man.
They use it to build up chemistry, to create all kinds of extra moments that they know that fans will use, and they also use it to unveil extra information. So it is something that is looked at with more scrutiny than certain other properties. It also used to be easier to avoid. However, with changes in how pop culture is reported upon, at the time of this recording, it is much more likely to see reports on press tours, and the actions or comments made by the actors. This also means that in a sea of interviews, certain moments that stand out or are more reportable, or can potentially be made more clickbaity, or are guaranteed more shares, stand out and are spread. And sometimes things that aren't even directly involved or directly on the press tour can end up being dragged in.
So earlier this week, USC Annenberg's Inclusive Initiative released findings that 67% of the top critics reviewing the 100 highest grossing movies in 2017 were white males. Less than a quarter were white women, and less than 10% were unrepresented men. Only 2.5% of those top critics were women of color. On top of all of this, am I saying that I hate white dudes? No, I'm not. But what I am saying is that if you make a movie that is a love letter to women of color, there is an insanely low chance a woman of color will have the chance to see your movie and review your movie. Other people besides white dudes like Star Wars and would love the opportunity to do a set visit. And I'm also saying I don't hate white dudes. I'm just saying we need to be conscious of our bias and do our part to make sure that
Again, how one felt about the Captain Marvel press tour is a very personal thing. It varies from person to person. For me, I'm very intrigued to see where this fandom goes, especially as now Captain Marvel will be joining the rest of the Avengers. So there are so many ways that Carol's character could go, and there are going to be ships whether the MCU pairs are off or not. It is the way of shipping. Currently, they're trying to keep romance very much out of it, at least overtly, but when has that ever stopped a shipper? It never has, and it never will. And again, it's not always a conscious choice. Sometimes it just happens. The ship becomes you. So of course here it must be asked, are you planning on seeing Captain Marvel? If you have already, what did you think of it? I must again reiterate that this is not a bashing space. We do not all have to like the same things, but we can discuss them respectfully. There has not been enough of that in the Captain Marvel lead up to date. For me, I'm just hoping for lots of fics. I am always hoping for lots of fics and lots of variety of fics because there's so much potential for little interesting niche pairings. If you already do have a favorite pairing, let me know what it is. Is it one of the emerging big two or is it something else? Because there's always the potential for more. There are people coming out of this shipping Captain Marvel and Minerva, Captain Marvel and Wendy Lawson. There's just a lot going on. There are already people who are shipping Captain Marvel and Black Widow. This was initially from before, but it has begun to transfer over into the MCU. Also, there are people who are bringing in her canonical romance with War Machine. So it's going to be an interesting time, hopefully. Sometimes fandoms surprise you and not a lot is produced, which for me is absolutely the saddest of times. So that was just a quick look at some Captain Marvel ships that seem to be emerging. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend it discussing ships with me. I always appreciate it. I hope that you enjoy that even though this was a retro 90s film, I wore an 80s sweater because rules are made to be broken. Also, I just really like this sweater. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Give this video a big like because it does help and share it around. I will see you all again when I can, and until then, let's get to the outro. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all my patrons, names on the side. There are, as always, more videos coming soon. Let me know what you're interested in down below. And don't forget, there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.